If there's been a consistent but pleasant theme to our recent videos, it's nonstop bad political news for Donald Trump. And spoiler alert, we have even more from three devastating sources. Number one, the most reputable electoral analysis firm in the country. Number two, the top Republican pollster in the country. And number three, the Trump-supporting, openly right-wing Newsmax of all places. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have a couple of clips to show you in this video. Again, it's just, we can't take anything for granted. I always feel like I've got to throw this in, temper your expectations. Understand that the election is 3 months away. We can still lose the election because the polls are within the margin of error presently. But right now, we should celebrate the fact that we're winning. We're winning the polls, we're winning the fundraising, we're winning the energy. And it's just been an endless spree of bad news for Donald Trump. And I think in a political environment where it's so easy to get discouraged, particularly for cynics like me, we have to enjoy that. We have to drink richly from that font, and we have even more. So we're going to start with this clip from Newsmax. Again, even more right-wing than Fox, these hosts tend to be open, unambiguous, enthusiastic Trump supporters and peddlers of dis and misinformation. They're even more inclined to indulge in conspiracy theories than even Fox is. Well, they just hit Trump with some devastating news electorally, so we're going to play the clip and unpack it together.
The key here is who's listening. I wanted to bring this point up with you, Charles, and maybe Chrissy as well, if you can. Gen Z is reportedly now energized like never before, wanting to be a part of the voting process. Young voters flocking to Harris on this specifically, at least according to a Vote.org spokesperson. They're on record saying this: more than 230,000 voters had registered to vote through Vote.org since Biden announced July 21st that he would step down. Of that figure, 18% were 18-year-olds and 81% between the ages of 18 to 34 years old. So with this number here, and you could see obviously the drive there, Charles, you're now seeing a lot of movement here with Kamala's campaign, Kamala Harris, the vice president, moving to get this critical vote.
Love to hear it, okay?
The key here is who's
one of the least engaged voting blocs in the country, which tends to overwhelmingly support Democrats, is energized. We're seeing record-breaking voter registrations ahead of this election, which, by the way, in previous elections, when we see that sort of thing, it tends to foretell poor performances for the Republican Party, who constantly hemorrhage Gen Z voters, who constantly refuse to seek Gen Z voters out. You had former presidential candidate for the Republican Party and top Trump advisor Vivek Ramaswamy talking about wanting to raise the voting age and sort of stuff like that. And then, of course, on a policy-by-policy basis, they tend to be unpopular with Gen Z. Well, it seems now that Vice President Harris is the Democratic nominee and President Biden is no longer seeking re-election. Well, they're turned on again. They're energized again. And again, no guarantees, but that tends to foretell a bad electoral night for Republicans. That was one of the three devastating sources I promised in this video. Another one, Cook Political Report. Simon Rosenberg, Democratic operative and author of the Hopium Chronicles, a guy who constantly gives us the good news for the Democratic Party. He helps cynics like me remain sane. He encourages optimists like I'm sure many of you are. Well, Harris leads or ties Trump in most battlegrounds, according to Cook Political Report. She's leading him in Arizona. She's tied with him in Georgia, a swing state that Trump desperately needs to win. He won previously. President Biden won in 2020. And I will remind you that Trump is currently picking a fight with the popular incumbent Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp. I digress. She's beating Trump in Michigan, which is a state that many of us were concerned about because of the uncommitted movement, particularly present and particularly robust in Michigan. But she's currently winning. She's beating him by by 5 percentage points in Pennsylvania, another crucial swing state. She's underwater in Nevada. Okay, by 5 percentage points. So that's the one where she's trailing. She's beating him in Wisconsin, and she's beating him in North Carolina at the moment, which is technically a purple state, but Republicans have bent over backwards to gerrymander the hell out of that state and try to maximize their institutional advantages. And I say that as somebody who lives in North Carolina. Also, as a reminder, I'll be canvassing in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Again, a swing state we desperately need to win in October. I'll be sure to include the link in the comment below. But again, that's good news. She's tied or beating him in all but one swing state, Nevada. It's incredible stuff. The Cook report is well regarded for its dispassionate and nonpartisan political analysis, and Amy Walters' report, published Wednesday morning, offers encouragement for the Harris campaign. Walters opens with this. A new Cook political report swing state project survey conducted by BSG and GS Strategy Group shows Vice President Harris leading or tied with Trump in all but one of the 7 battleground states. Overall, she holds a narrow lead of 48 to 47 in those states in the head-to-head. Harris has closed the gap with Trump since the last swing state project survey in May, when Trump led President Biden by 3 points overall and was ahead or tied in every one of the swing states. The one state where Trump still holds a slim lead is Nevada, though the vice president has narrowed Trump's margin by 6 points since May. This is devastating political news for Donald Trump. Again, as Walter would say, this is still an election that Trump can win. It's still relatively close, but right now we have the momentum. This is good news. It's incumbent on the rest of us, you and I and everybody else, to make sure that momentum carries. I want to play another clip, and this is from top Republican pollster Frank Luntz, who has been making the rounds. He was recently on Piers Morgan. He recently went on CNN. He's frequent on Fox. He's making the rounds because he is a Republican and conservative, trying in his own way to shake the tree and shake the failing, stupid Trump campaign out of its stupor. So we're going to play this clip, which is about 4 minutes long, and unpack it together.
It is polls in the presidential race showing the Vice President Harris gaining ground in some swing states and even eroding some of former President Trump's lead in Florida. Our next guest says if the election were held today, she would win. Joining us right now is pollster and political strategist Frank Luntz. That's a turn.
It's more than that.
That's a plot twist.
She's bringing out people who are not interested in voting for either Trump or Biden. So the entire electoral pool has changed. And if it continues in this direction, you have to start to consider Democrats winning the Senate and Democrats winning the House. The actual people who are participating, she's got intensity now. She's got an intensity advantage. She's got a demographic advantage. And I haven't seen anything like this happen in 30 days.
I will say, before he carries on, this is such a good point, because I've mentioned this in previous videos. I haven't mentioned it as much here lately, and I would be remiss to fail to do so here. Luntz is right that this potentially heralds not just us winning the presidency, keeping the presidency, but us keeping and expanding our control of the Senate, God willing, or a trifecta, taking back the House as well. Folks, it's important for Democrats to preserve democracy. For us to get anything done, we need a trifecta. Yes, there are worst case scenarios, right? Having the White House is probably better. Like if we had to give something up, then it's important to keep the White House because the president can veto the terrible things that Republicans want to do. But if we want to make progress, if we want to advance, which we all want to do, we want to make progress on the economy, progress with civil and human rights, progress on Supreme Court reforms, we need it all. Right? Because Republicans will not work with us. They refuse to work. We see it, MAGA Republicans now in the House of Representatives. They can't even pass a damn budget. They can't pass appropriations bills. They can't pass funding because they're so concerned that anything they do could be seen or pitched as a Democratic victory. They hate Democrats more than any sort of love they may or may not have for this country. So we have to win them all. Keep that in mind.
That marginal extra voter that she's bringing in, I mean, how much does that change the pool?
1%, maybe 2%. That's it. But that's enough.
Right.
Can I just ask you, though, about the veracity, frankly, of the polls right now? Because you go back and look, and there was an interesting report yesterday showing that if you look at where Donald Trump was in terms of what the polling showed, this is back in 2016,
yep,
undercounted. You go even in 2020, undercounted. And so, you start to think about the margin of error situation where maybe she's up, 1 or 2%. But, is the Trump vote fully counted?
But that's why my process is not just to do the numbers. It's also to do the focus groups, to listen, to understand why people feel this way. And now my groups are broken up by young women saying, I'm not voting for him anymore. Make no mistake, there are three attributes, three components.
So you think it's a switch? It's not, because you just said, I'm not voting for them anymore. So you think they were voting for Donald Trump, and now they're voting for Harris?
The people who are undecided have all collapsed towards Harris. The people who are weak Trump have all collapsed towards undecided. It's his broad shift. I'm trying to do a focus group tonight with undecided voters under the age of 27 for a major news outlet. And I can't recruit young women to this because they don't exist as undecided voters. And you shift the demographics and you shift the entire outcome. There are issues, attributes, and the conditions of the country. The issues and conditions favor Donald Trump. He should be winning this election. But the attributes are so much in Harris's favor that he's not. That the very attributes that Trump offers, and the best example, you did the story on the UAW, why is Donald Trump saying publicly, I want to fire the same people that he's getting now, still getting union members? It's ridiculous. It's as though he's lost control. And I know that there are billionaires who watch this show who are spending a lot of money on Donald Trump, and they don't understand why he's committing.
And as Frank Luntz said in previous videos, the problem isn't the advice. Trump believed there are very intelligent people in the Republican Party. There are very politically savvy people in the Republican Party. It's just that Donald Trump is really, 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 really stupid and in cognitive decline based on things we've seen, based on the polls, based on things that even his own allies have said about it. Megyn Kelly, billionaires, right-wing billionaires. Actually, and that story broke from CNBC, which tends to skew more conservative, right? They were the ones who broke that right-wing multi-millionaires and billionaires who met with Trump within the past few months, walked out of that meeting thinking, oh my God, this guy's insane. The problem is Trump. And I'm okay with that because at the rate he's going, we're going to win the election. But it's not set in stone because Trump may reverse course. The vice president may make a mistake. So we have to keep that in mind. We can't get complacent. We can't take anything for granted. And we have to do our part to keep the energy going. But I just wanted to share some more good news from 3 devastating sources that will no doubt trigger Trump. And hopefully that will bring a smile to your face as it did mine. Let me know what you think in the comments.